The NYPD is giving an update on the arrest of a gunman accused of shooting another man as that man collided with two young children on a sidewalk in the Bronx. Let's listen.
The detectives, Jimmy Essick, our chief of patrol, Juanita Holmes, and the chief from our Bronx investigative unit, Timmy McCormick. You know, 24 hours ago, I was standing in the Forest Houses with Darcel, announcing our initiative with the mayor, Kids First, and it was a great event, I like to think. Whole community came out, cutting the ribbon on a basketball court, and it's everything that we're trying to do. And it reminds us, when you think about the kids in New York City and trying to do everything possible, not just to provide them opportunities to keep them out of trouble, but to keep them safe. Today we are here to talk about an incident that occurred last Thursday that was the exact opposite of that. I am glad and pleased to announce, and I want to thank the members of the 44th Precinct, Darcel Clark, your entire staff, and Jimmy, all the investigators that worked on this case to bring this case to a conclusion. The case remains open. But we have made an arrest of the shooter, and I'm going to turn it over after Darcel speaks to Jimmy Essick that will give you all the details.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea, and all the members of NYPD that helped with this investigation. And good afternoon, everyone. You know, more than 40 years ago, during a Yankee game, the TV cameras focused on a building on fire not too far from Yankee Stadium, and the announcer said, "The Bronx is burning." That footage defined the Bronx for years to come. And we were seen as a place of destruction and arson. Now, we have this video of these two innocent children running for their lives. The images of a 13-year-old girl shielding her 5-year-old brother from bullets fired by a gunman in broad daylight on a Thursday afternoon. That heart-wrenching video was seen around the world, and now I fear that the catchphrase is that the Bronx is bleeding. We are doing everything that we can, but we need to prevent things like this from happening. We're working every day with the community to support these kids, but we also need people to cooperate when something like this happens. It took days for the suspect to be apprehended. But what we really needed was for the public to come to us immediately to let us know who this suspect was so that we could get him off the streets as soon as possible. Fortunately, the police were able to do an outstanding job piecing together all the evidence. They worked around the clock with my assistant district attorneys, with my chief and deputy chief of our trial division, Teresa Gottlieb and James Brennan, to make a case and for us to be able to bring charges. The defendant will likely be arraigned in court later today or tonight on multiple charges, including attempted murder. If convicted, he faces a maximum of 25 years in prison. I met these children and their parents. They're a wonderful family. And this is exactly what we were trying to do in Forest Houses, trying to create safe spaces for our kids. But these children now are obviously suffering from those, the trauma of being almost killed and barely and narrowly escaping death. I talked to that young 13-year-old girl, and I told her she was my hero, because she is one. They're getting assistance and services, and they seem to be very resilient. And we hope, but most importantly, we pray that they're able to recover from this. I implore the public to please help us put an end to gun violence that is destroying our communities. This case got worldwide attention because of the video and those children. But there are cases like this every day where lives are being ruined. No one hears about them, but the damage is there. We must end this, and we must end it now. I'm looking forward to the day where the catchphrase is that the Bronx is thriving. Thank you again, Commissioner Shea and members of the NYPD, for all your hard work, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Dorcel. Jimmy?
Thank you, Dorcel. I heard you talk about gun violence, and I just want to start out by saying there's just way too many guns and violence in the streets, and too many children of the victims. In the last month and a half, since I've been named the chief of detectives, we had three terrible incidents that I can think of. Out in the Rockaways, where a 10-year-old was killed, Times Square, 3 people shot, including an innocent child, and then, thank God for this near miss up in the Bronx. One thing I could say is in all 3 incidents, members of the detective squad, the New York City Police detectives, were able to get an ID and have person apprehended, sometimes within hours, days, and in this case, a week. Yeah, so phenomenal work by the detective squad, and the people of this city should be damn proud of their police department. They do great work out there. These are hard, very hard, in-depth cases, and they do a great job. So with me today, just before I start, Timmy McCormick. He's the Bronx investigative chief. He led this investigation. I'd like to thank Dorcel Clark, partners from the Bronx DAs. We can't do it without them. So in terms of the investigation, earlier today, members of our regional task force apprehended a perp wanted for the horrible incident we all witnessed on Sheridan Avenue in the Bronx. A Mr. Michael Lopez was taken into custody at his stepfather's house at Tiano Towers in Harlem. Mr. Lopez is a male, 27 years old. He resides at 1430 Amsterdam Avenue. That's the Manhattanville houses in Harlem. He's also known on Instagram as Nino the God 93. He has 5 prior arrests. He's on parole for an attempted murder, which he was arrested for in 2014. His history includes last January of 20, a robbery, knife point robbery in the subways. That case is still active. He's also got, from last January, an unlawful disclosure of material. That's also an active case. In 2014, he was a subject of a conspiracy case where he was charged with conspiracy to an attempted murder. That case was done by Manhattan South Gang Squad, where he was identified as a Make It Happen boy. He was convicted in 2015 on that. He was sentenced to 3 to 9 years. He was released after 2.5 years, and he's on parole as we speak till April of 2023. He was also arrested in 2011 on a gun charge, which he served some time. In this case, I would like to thank the public for the numerous Crime Stopper tips we've had. Some were very, very instrumental leading to the subject. I'd also want to ask for their help. We are still looking for this perpetrator's accomplice, the man shown on the scooter. If you have any information on that, we'd like you to call Crime Stoppers. And with that, I'd like to take any questions on the investigation. Yes?
Real quick, given the history, the background you just mentioned on Mr. Lopez, the prior arrest for attempted murder, criminal possession of a weapon, it was extensive. How is it possible that he was out on the streets?
Well, that would be my question as well. That would be my question as well. Multiple times convicted, multiple times released to parole. And I think the main question we all should be asking is, how does an individual released to parole get arrested for knife point robbery and is walking around on the streets? And is that justice for those little kids? So I would ask, where is the laws for those kids? Because somehow they've been forgotten in this.
Do you have any evidence this was maybe part of a gang dispute?
Well, we know he's a gang member, and that's one of the things we are looking into. And the investigation is still early, but he's a gang member with a gun on parole, so we're investigating that.
Any more information on the other man who was shot?
We look at his background too, and that's taken into account. So we're looking at all facets, anything that will lead us to the motive.
How did you come to identify these statements were discovered?
Well, through members of the community, we were able to identify them. We got very good help from the community in this particular case. As to his statements, he was taken into custody. He admitted that he was that photo that you've seen in the train station, and he gave conflicting accounts as to his whereabouts that day, and that's all he said.
Maybe for the commissioner, the state attorney general recently said that she blamed the surge in shootings on the proliferation of illegal guns rather than bail reform. What would your reaction be to that?
Yeah, I would stay focused on this. I think there's a lot of factors. I think the state attorney general is right. There's way too many guns on the street. There's also a lot of factors behind what we're seeing right now. What I would like to get back to is common sense. And I think that when you see individuals on the street getting arrested for violent activities, getting released almost immediately, and seeing this churn over and over again, I think we can do a lot better.
Commissioner?
Yes.
So when he gets arrested for the knife-point robbery, it's clear that he's on parole. There is usually some dialogue, whether it's between the arresting officer or supervisor, the legal bureau, and parole. What happened there?
No, the process is real important, Rocco, so we don't leave it to that. What actually happens is when somebody's arrested that's on parole, as soon as they're fingerprinted, parole is notified. So that would preclude any mistakes and not answering a phone or forgetting to notify. The process is real important so that nothing falls through the cracks.
Do you know offhand if there was a subsequent hearing?
I do not. I do not.
Could I please ask what gang he is a member of?
Make It Happen, Boys.
Mr. Clark, you seem to suggest that there wasn't the level of cooperation here that maybe you would like. Is that the case, and has that been the case since bail reform and the discovery laws, et cetera?
It's just that when something happens, I just wish that people would think about the safety of the community. I know people are concerned with their own safety, but in order to make cases, or in order to make the best cases, it's good when we have cooperation of all the witnesses, of everybody in the community coming together to make sure that we can hold accountable the person that's bringing the violence into the community. That doesn't always happen, but I'm not saying that it never happens. The community rallies together when they can, and for us to get this done in a week, we got enough cooperation that we're able to charge him. So I'm happy about that. It's just that I'm imploring the community that every time something like this happens, we need to remember that the only way to stop this is if we get the cooperation.
You seem to be suggesting that you would have liked more cooperation.
I want a whole lot of I want a lot of things. I don't get everything that I want, but I'm happy that the community knows enough and care enough about their community that people are courageous enough to come forward. And that's the key, that people have to show courage, and we have to make sure that we can let them know that we want to help them make their community safer. So we have to work together.
I just want to add into that Crime Stoppers is anonymous. So if you're afraid, call Crime Stoppers. We investigate and vet out every lead you send. So please, Crime Stoppers, if some people do fear.
It's also notable, Rocco, that we raised the Crime Stoppers payout from $2,500 to $3,500 a couple of weeks ago. We announced it last week, though. So.
Any other questions on this one?
Was the gun found?
Not at this time, but the investigation is continuing to that.
Okay, we got a couple of minutes for off-topic, if there's off-topic. So let's go to some of the other reporters. Patrice or Al? Okay. Anybody else in the lightning round?
That's pretty good.